Nyambura had always believed in love. Born and raised in the lush, misty highlands of Muranga, she had grown up witnessing her parents' quiet, enduring affection. Her mother, a strong yet gentle woman, often reminded her, "A good marriage is built on trust, my daughter. Without it, love is just an illusion." She carried those words like a talisman, believing that love, when nurtured with honesty and devotion, would never falter. Then she met Kamau. He was unlike anyone she had ever known, charismatic, ambitious, with a smile that made promises without words. Their love was intoxicating, the kind that made everything else fade into the background. Kamau courted her with a relentless passion, filling her world with expensive dinners, weekend getaways, and whispered vows of forever. By the time he proposed, under the golden glow of the setting sun at a private resort in Naivasha, Nyambura was convinced she had found her soulmate. Their wedding was a grand affair in Limuru, with rolling tea plantations as the backdrop. As they danced beneath twinkling lights, Kamau leaned in and whispered, "I will love you until the stars refuse to shine." For years, their life together seemed blissful. Kamau showered her with gifts, jewelry that sparkled like the night sky, designer dresses from Paris, and vacations to Diani Beach. He encouraged her to chase her dreams, promising to support her dream of opening a high-end fashion boutique in Nairobi. To the world, they were the perfect couple. But perfection is often a mirage. It started subtly. Kamau's business trips became longer, his phone calls more private. There were nights he came home late, reeking of expensive cologne mixed with something floral, something unfamiliar. Nyambura told herself it was paranoia, that her husband was simply working hard to secure their future. She ignored the sinking feeling in her gut until the message arrived. It was a Friday evening. Nyambura was alone in their Karen mansion, curled up on the sofa with a book she had barely touched. Kamau had left 2 days ago for a business meeting in Mombasa. Her phone buzzed. At first she ignored it, but when it vibrated again, persistent, urgent, she picked it up. The message was short. "If you think Kamau is faithful, you're blind. Open your eyes before it's too late." Her blood ran cold. For a moment, she just stared at the words, her fingers trembling around the phone. Who would send such a thing? And why? 1,000 thoughts swirled in her mind. Kamau had always been good to her. He was attentive, generous, and loving. But then the memories began to resurface. Memories she had buried, the late-night meetings, the unexplained weekend trips, the new car she had once seen parked outside his office, a sleek white Mercedes she had never seen him drive before. A bitter taste filled her mouth. Slowly, deliberately, she typed back, "Who are you?" There was no response. Something inside her cracked. She had spent years building her life around Kamau, believing in the fairy tale he had woven around them. But now, doubt gnawed at her insides like a parasite. She needed the truth, and she knew exactly who could find it for her. That night, Nyambura contacted Wanjala, a former detective with a reputation for uncovering the ugliest of secrets. His voice was rough, seasoned with experience. "You're sure about this?" he asked after she explained the situation. She hesitated for only a second. "Yes." 3 days later, Wanjala handed her a thick manila folder. Nyambura sat in her car, parked outside a quiet cafe, her breath unsteady as she flipped through the pages. There he was, Kamau, the man she had trusted, the man who had sworn to love her until the stars refused to shine. But he wasn't alone. In photo after photo, he was with a woman, a stunning dark-skinned beauty with high cheekbones and a confident smile. They held hands, laughed, and whispered in each other's ears. In one picture, Kamau was helping her into a car, the white Mercedes. Nyambura felt like she was suffocating, and then she saw the final piece of evidence, a copy of a marriage certificate. Kamau and Achieng. They had been married for 3 years. Kamau hadn't just been cheating, he had built an entirely separate life. She closed the folder and stared blankly ahead. Her world had shattered, but she refused to be one of those women who broke down and begged for love. Number, she would make him regret every single lie. Nyambura didn't confront Kamau immediately. That would have been too easy. Instead, she played the role of the devoted wife, masking her fury behind soft smiles and gentle touches. When Kamau returned from his business trip, she greeted him with open arms, pressing a lingering kiss to his lips. If he noticed the way her fingers curled a little too tightly around his shirt, he didn't say anything. She continued her routine, cooking his favorite meals, laughing at his jokes, pretending to be the perfect, oblivious wife. But behind that carefully constructed facade, she was setting her pieces in place. Her first move was subtle. She reached out to Achieng under a false identity, posing as an investor looking to fund emerging entrepreneurs in the fashion industry. It didn't take long for Achieng to take the bait. After all, Kamau had promised her a boutique, the very same dream he had once encouraged in Nyambura. Over coffee at an upscale restaurant, Achieng gushed about Kamau. "He's amazing," she said, her eyes shining. "He's setting up everything for me. A boutique, business contacts, everything." Nyambura's stomach twisted. Kamau wasn't just betraying her, he was replacing her. But he had underestimated her, and soon he would pay for it. Nyambura was patient. Revenge, after all, was best served cold. She had spent years believing in a love that had never truly been hers, but now she was in control. Kamau had built a life on deception, and she would be the one to tear it down. Her plan had multiple layers, each one designed to strike where it hurt most: his wealth, his reputation, and the fragile web of lies he had woven around himself. The first blow came swiftly. Using the financial documents Wanjala had uncovered, Nyambura exposed Kamau's unethical business dealings to his investors. She sent anonymous tips to major business associates, revealing discrepancies in his accounts and questionable offshore transactions. Within a week, his bank accounts were frozen. His business partnerships, built on trust and illusion, began to collapse. Kamau had always believed he was untouchable. But when he found himself struggling to secure funding for a new venture, when longtime investors started pulling out without warning, his confidence began to crack. And Nyambura was just getting started. Her next move targeted Achieng. With the trust she had built under her fake investor persona, she planted seeds of doubt. "I heard Kamau is having money problems," she mentioned casually one afternoon as they sipped cocktails at a rooftop lounge. "Are you sure the boutique is still happening?" Achieng's smile faltered for the first time. "Of course," she said quickly. "Kamau promised." Nyambura arched a perfectly sculpted brow. Men promise a lot of things. Achieng didn't respond, but Nyambura could tell the doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, she watched as small fractures formed in Achieng's perfect vision of Kamau. Their once frequent weekend getaways became strained. The boutique that Kamau had promised was delayed again and again. Then Nyambura struck the final blow. Late one evening, she sent Kamau a message from Achieng's phone, carefully replicating her style. "Meet me in room 407 at the Fairmont Hotel. I have a surprise for you." Kamau, believing it to be another secret rendezvous, arrived with flowers in hand, excitement in his eyes. But when he stepped inside, the air turned to ice. Nyambura was sitting on the bed, a folder resting on her lap, and standing behind her, arms crossed, was Achieng. Kamau froze. The bouquet slipped from his hands, landing unceremoniously on the plush hotel carpet. His eyes darted between the two women, his wife and his secret bride, panic twisting his features. Nyambura tilted her head, watching him with an eerie calm. "Have a seat, Kamau," she said softly. He swallowed hard. "Nyambura, what is this?" She flipped open the folder. Evidence. Inside, every lie he had ever told was laid bare. Bank statements of hidden accounts, business deals made in her name without her knowledge, and worst of all, his marriage certificate to Achieng. Achieng snatched the paper from Nyambura's hand, her face contorted in rage. "You told me she was just your ex," she hissed. Kamau stammered. "Achieng, I can explain." Nyambura laughed, the sound sharp as a knife. "Oh, no need for explanations. We all understand now, don't we?" Achieng turned on him, her eyes blazing. "You lied to me, Kamau. You promised me a future. You promised." Kamau reached for her, but she shoved him back. And then the door burst open. 2 police officers stepped inside. "Mr. Kamau," one of them said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs, "you are under arrest for financial fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft." Kamau's face drained of color. "No, this is a mistake." Nyambura stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "You betrayed me. Now you are nothing." Kamau's pleas turned into shouts as the officers dragged him away. Achieng, shaken, slumped onto the bed, staring at the wedding certificate in her hands. Nyambura smoothed her dress, her heart steady. This was justice. Months later, Nyambura stood in front of a boutique in the heart of Nairobi, the sign above gleaming in the morning sun. Nyambura's house of style, her boutique, her dream, built with her own strength. She cut the ribbon, the applause of guests ringing in her ears. Among them stood Wanjala, watching her with quiet admiration. "New beginnings?" he asked. Nyambura turned to him, a slow smile playing on her lips. "No, my friend," she said. "This is just the beginning." Kamau was gone. His empire had crumbled, his power stripped, and his reputation shattered. Nyambura should have felt victorious, but something wasn't right. For weeks after Kamau's arrest, she felt like she was being watched. Strange calls in the middle of the night. A car parked a little too long outside her boutique. And once, as she locked up after hours, she swore she saw a figure disappear into the shadows. At first, she ignored it. Paranoia, she told herself, a ghost of the past lingering too long. But then a letter arrived at her doorstep. "You think this is over. You don't know who you've crossed. A." Nyambura's hands tightened around the paper, her breath shallow. Achieng. After Kamau's arrest, Achieng had vanished. No phone calls, no public appearances. Some assumed she had moved away in shame, while others believed she had simply wanted to escape the scandal. Nyambura hadn't cared. Until now. She found Achieng where she least expected, sitting at the bar of a luxurious hotel in Nairobi, sipping champagne as if she had no worries in the world. "You found me," Achieng said without looking up. Nyambura slid into the seat beside her. "I always do." Achieng let out a soft chuckle, swirling her drink. "Tell me, Nyambura, did you think I'd let you get away with everything?" Nyambura's eyes narrowed. "Kamau betrayed both of us. You have no reason to come after me." Achieng finally met her gaze, and for the first time, Nyambura saw something chilling in her eyes. Not anger, not sadness, amusement. "Oh, darling," Achieng whispered, leaning closer. "Kamau was just a pawn. I was always after something bigger. Nyambura's heart pounded. What do you mean? Aching smirked, placing her glass down with a deliberate clink. Let's just say Kamau had secrets even you didn't uncover, and now you've made enemies you can't even see. The air between them turned electric. Nyambura had thought she had won, but the game had only just begun. Kamau had been powerful, but power like his didn't come from talent alone. It came from alliances, from debts owed to dangerous men. And now that Kamau was out of the picture, someone had to pay. Nyambura realized this when Wanjala called her late at night, his voice unusually tense. We have a problem. Nyambura sat up in bed. What is it? Wanjala hesitated. I dug deeper into Kamau's business dealings. Turns out he wasn't just committing financial fraud. He was laundering money for some very dangerous people. A cold shiver ran down Nyambura's spine. How dangerous? The kind that makes people disappear. Her fingers curled around the bed sheet. And now that he's gone? They think you know where their money is. Nyambura's blood ran cold. Within a week, things escalated. Her boutique was vandalized, windows shattered, mannequins broken, clothes ripped apart. A chilling message was spray-painted across the entrance. Where is the money? Nyambura knew one thing. She had never touched Kamau's dirty money, but the man he had been working with didn't believe that. And Achieng? She was nowhere to be found. It was Wanjala who found the first real clue. I traced some of Kamau's hidden accounts, he told her. And guess whose name was tied to one of them? Nyambura stared at him. Achieng. Wanjala nodded grimly. She's been withdrawing money, large amounts. The truth settled over her like a weight. Achieng hadn't just been Kamau's second wife. She had been his partner in crime. And now she was setting Nyambura up to take the fall. It took time, but Wanjala managed to track Achieng down. She was living under a different name, staying in an upscale penthouse paid for with Kamau's dirty money. Nyambura didn't waste time. She showed up unannounced, stepping into the lavish apartment like she owned the place. Achieng, dressed in silk pajamas and sipping red wine, barely flinched. You move fast, Nyambura said coolly. Achieng smiled. Always have. Nyambura walked to the center of the room. They're coming for me, Achieng. The men Kamau was working with. They think I have the money. Achieng sighed as if bored. Well, that is unfortunate for you, isn't it? Nyambura's patience snapped. Enough games. I know you took the money. Achieng's smile didn't waver. And if I did? Then they'll come for you next. Silence. For the first time, Achieng's mask cracked. Nyambura stepped closer. You thought you were safe, but Kamau wasn't the only one who owed them. You were part of his schemes. Do you really think they'll just let you walk away? Achieng's grip on her wineglass tightened. I can help you, Nyambura said, but I need the truth. Achieng hesitated. Then slowly, she reached for a file on the table. Inside were records of every illegal deal Kamau had made. Names, transactions, dates, everything the authorities needed to take down the men hunting Nyambura. A way out. Nyambura exhaled. This will work, Achieng smirked. I always knew you had it in you, darling. Nyambura met her gaze. And I always knew you were a snake. Achieng lifted her glass in mock salute. Then let's make a deal. With the evidence in hand, Nyambura went to Wanjala. We give this to the authorities, but only under one condition, she said. Wanjala raised an eyebrow. And that is? We make sure Kamau's partners take the fall, every last one of them. And Achieng? Nyambura paused, her lips curling into a smirk. She'll pay her own price. Wanjala studied her. You sure about this? Nyambura nodded. Absolutely. And so the final trap was set. By the time the dust settled, Kamau's former allies were in police custody. The dangerous men who had once ruled Nairobi's underground business world were no more. And Achieng? She woke up one morning to find every last cent of Kamau's stolen fortune wiped from her accounts. Nyambura had made sure of it. Achieng had played the game well, but in the end, Nyambura had played it better. And now she was truly free. Months later, standing in her fully restored boutique, Nyambura looked out at the bustling city. She had lost everything once, but she had rebuilt. And this time, no one would take anything from her ever again. The end.